This is probably going to get buried, but I wanted to share this. Some background. I do almost all the cooking in our house and am very particular about having a clean kitchen. On Valentine's Day, she completely ruined my plans of cooking her a meal we rarely indulge in. She reached out to my mom and learned how to make one of my favorite dishes from childhood and surprised me with it when I got home from work. It was damn near perfect, which is even more impressive since we are both of different ethnic backgrounds. The icing on the cake was that she left the kitchen spotless. It was the first time she ever cooked for me, and in the past, no one had ever thought to call my mom and find out how to make a childhood favorite. Hands down the most thoughtful thing a girlfriend has ever done for me. Story 1. I woke up one morning with her hand on my chest and head on my shoulder. She said she was having a hard time mentally and that I was her comfort. Honestly, I just felt warm waking up that way. I don't think she really thought much about it, but it made my whole month and still makes me happy to think about it. Story 2. We had an appointment to induce the birth of our first daughter bright and early at 6 a.m. We parked in the hospital garage. My very pregnant wife went to get something out of the trunk. I figured it was our overnight bag. Nope. It was a Superman-themed gift bag with Superdad written on it. In it were puzzles, little games, a couple of books I had been looking at in the library, and multiple peanut butter Twix, my favorite candy. To have taken the time to care for me at the hospital when she was about to go through the forthcoming ordeal. And it was, as they finally gave up and did a C-section at 11:35 p.m., is something I can never forget. Story 3. She took care of me after knee surgery. We were only dating for a couple of months, but she did everything for me. She wanted to help because she cared about me. Married with 2 kids 13 years later. Story 4. She truly pays attention to our conversations more than anyone else has. It's amazing how much of an impact it has on understanding each other. She remembers everything to such a degree, she can almost read my mind. Story 5. Over the course of the relationship, I had casually mentioned a lot of stuff like how my favorite candy bar was Coffee Crisp or how, when I was a kid, my first soda was one I got trick-or-treating, an Orange Crush. When Halloween arrived, I woke up to find a Coffee Crisp and an Orange Crush with a note that said, "Happy Halloween." I was surprised she remembered, and I'll never forget that little gesture. Story 6. She calls me handsome like it's my name. I never really thought about how much I love it until I read this thread. She's just her, to be honest. The way she looks at me, rolls over to cuddle in the morning, asks me if I need anything when she goes in the kitchen or out to a store. Things like that. She's actually kind of perfect. Laughing out loud. Story 7. Every once in a while, if I am out with my friends at a bar, my significant other will send a few dollars with the caption, "The next drink is on me." It is not really about the money. It is just such a cute, thoughtful gesture, and I love knowing that she wants me to go out there and have a great time, even if she is not around. She is the best. Story 8. Back and head massage without asking. She is a singer and has a great voice, so sometimes she used to sing me to sleep or just read some tales until I was asleep. I don't know why, but that relaxed me a lot. Probably took me back to my childhood. It's always the small things that I enjoy the most. Story 9. One of the things that made me decide that I was going to marry my wife was incredibly small, but I loved it. One day, I was in the garage working on my car, and something wasn't going as I had planned. I don't remember what I was doing, but it was a struggle and I was getting frustrated. Like most guys who are frustrated while holding tools, I was banging things and cursing and just generally being loud and obnoxious. Without a word, she came out with a sandwich and handed it to me. She said that it sounded like I was having a rough time, that I'd been out here for a while, and she thought I would like a small snack break. Just the fact that she heard the frustration and tried to help in the best way that she could made me realize she was thinking about me and wanted to try to make me happy even when we were apart doing our own thing. It was super small, but it meant the world to me at that moment. It calmed me down immediately, and I was able to get the problem fixed almost immediately after. Story 10. I used to have a girlfriend who would sing to me when we were alone. She had an amazing voice. She also used to sing "Happy Birthday" on the phone for my grandma. Story 11. My significant other and I are both child sexual abuse survivors. I was abused by a man and used to feel really uncomfortable with my masculinity. It was something I wasn't really aware of since it had been my whole life. Ever since coming to understand that about myself, she has made sure to tell me how much she loves my masculinity, how manly she thinks I am, and how safe and good I make her feel all the time, multiple times a week for many years now. Has changed my entire life and perception of myself. I used to quietly despise men, and myself worst of all. Now I love being a man. It's my greatest pleasure in life that I can protect her and cherish her, and make someone who went through what she did as a child feel safe and comfortable. Story 12. We went hiking, found a cool river, and saw a wild otter. She got so excited she turned around and said, "I love you," and jumped in my arms. This was before we said that to each other. I regret not saying it back at that moment, but we're happily still together. Story 13. This is dumb, but my girlfriend likes doing my nails once a week for me, and to be honest, I like it. She pushes back the skin on the nail or whatever and files the corners, and she is super gentle the whole time. I don't know, it's super relaxing. Story 14. I have a memory box of all these super cute love letters and notes that my partner used to write me before work. She would slip them into my laptop or whatever so I would find them. She would draw pictures of US or of animals doing silly things. She doesn't do it anymore, which is fine, but I'll keep them forever. Edit. I have a whiteboard in my office, and she often draws pictures of things on it. That's another good one. Story 15. Before we started dating, we got drunk one night, and she made a presentation saying, "5 reasons you should date me. Bitch." I eventually found myself falling in love with her. Story 16. This was an example I really think I took for granted. Didn't know what I had until it was gone. She actually listened to the things I rambled on about. I'm a technical researcher and know how to navigate the internet. I'm very good at tracking down deals and discounts in complex ways. I'd casually explain little techniques, not expecting anyone to listen, because no one does. But she did. She once booked a holiday for my birthday, everything first class. I thought she'd spend a fortune, but she told me she did what I do and saved a lot. I actually felt guilty for not spending enough. My jaw dropped at that point. Since then, I haven't found anyone quite like that. Story 17. Whenever I get home, her eyes and smile light up. She will say, "My darling," stop whatever she is doing, and come kiss and embrace me. She will then just resume whatever she was doing. Story 18. She is a morning person, me not so much. I once told her about how I left a dog treat right next to my dog's nose when she was sleeping to see how long it would take her to notice. Since then, my girlfriend often makes me a cup of coffee and hovers it next to my nose so the fumes get to my brain. That wakes me up so fast. Story 19. My grandfather was like a father to me, and when he passed away, I wrote a reading. He was buried in one of those places with stacked mausoleums, and the funeral services were held in one of the buildings on site. I left my speech in the car for some reason, thinking that I wasn't going to need it until later. The priest at one point says, "Now if anyone has something they would like to say, you may come up now." And I felt very disappointed because I thought I wasn't going to get the chance. But my girlfriend immediately looked at me and then instinctively got up to run to the car and grab my reading. Only one other person had prepared something, so they had gotten up to read it, and my significant other came back just as they were finishing, and I was able to read mine. She is wonderful and a genuinely considerate person. Story 20. It's still the best gift I've ever gotten. I had a mug from a church that I used to go to, and I have so many great memories of this place and absolutely cherished this mug and had it for years. I ended up dropping it when it was wet, and I broke it and was devastated and quite down for a couple of days. My girlfriend, unknown to me, took the mug, found a graphic designer to recreate the graphic on it, and then had it specially made for me and presented it to me on my birthday. I was blown away. I think it's the most thoughtful thing anyone has ever done for me. Story 21. My girlfriend and I are in a long-distance relationship. Money is very tight for me, so I can't buy the food I want. I have to buy the cheapest items, rarely any snacks. Last semester, she sent me a care package full of my favorite snacks and food. Something small that meant a lot to me. Story 22. Out of a toxic 10-year marriage. Started dating, and this girl is just wonderful. She does tiny little things that I've never experienced before, which genuinely make me emotional thinking about it. She talks to me, is interested in what I have to say, makes me a cup of tea, is affectionate and complimentary, seems happy to see me, and accepts me for who I am. I reciprocate all of this, by the way. She just values me and makes me feel wanted. I've never had that before, and it's just incredible. Story 23. For me, it was when she bought me a stuffed llama for Valentine's Day. She was and still is the only girl to ever do that for me. For her, it was nothing, but for me, it meant so much. Story 24. Not in a relationship, but a female friend who I dated for a while. We were in the process of realizing we wouldn't be anything more than just friends. She sent me a very long and detailed text about the things she liked about me. There were a few points about my looks and voice, which was cool. All the rest was about my mind, my mannerisms, my parenting, work ethic, the way I treat her and others, how I handle negativity, etc. It really made me feel good as a man that someone sees that much good in me. Story 25. Man, just the other day when I said I was having kind of an icky day, she immediately drove over and brought me some Chinese food with my exact order. It was snowing outside, and she stood there waiting for me to open the door while I got dressed. Man, I love this girl. Story 26. So this was an ex and is an ex for a good reason. But this is something that, at the time, made my jaw hit the floor and is something I hope to maybe find again in someone. Now I'm a very passionate person. I can ramble about something I care about for literal hours, and she would just sit there and listen, fully engaged. I always try to avoid rambling because I feel like I'm hogging the conversation and likely being annoying, but she enjoyed my ramblings and even called them cute. Shame things turned out the way they did. Okay, so this got way more attention than I expected, so I want to try and use this opportunity. If you look in the replies, you'll find out the reason for our breakup was related to mental health. To anyone reading this, you are not responsible for someone else's happiness or mental health. The best you can do is point them in the right direction for help. You should not sacrifice your mental health, happiness, or well-being for the sake of someone who is, for lack of a better term, toxic to your life. Please look after yourselves. Story 27. She was in the United States and I was in the United Kingdom. We would talk at night, and if I started to nod off, she would stay on the phone and make sure I went to sleep okay. Sometimes I would even wake up to her still being there. She was a good one. Story 28. My ex at the time noticed I was always getting sunburned. This was while we were still in high school, and since I was a broke student, it was the least of my worries. She asked why I never used sunscreen, and I explained that I got really bad acne breakouts when I used it. I've had a history with really bad acne. The following day, she said she had a surprise for me, told me to close my eyes, and gave me an entire tub of sunscreen specifically for acne-prone skin. I didn't realize she had paid attention to what I had said the day before, and I honestly almost broke down in tears because, for once, someone listened to what I said candidly and acted on it. Story 29. I had told her that I would come over after work so we could play video games. I ended up having to work much later than expected, but she still wanted me to come over. She knew I was going to be disappointed because of work, so she cooked my favorite meal and set the table all romantically. Before we sat down, she put something on my head and said, "The king needs his crown." She made crowns for both of us. I love her. Story 30. Not small, but I've been wanting to tell this story for a while now. When I was a child, I went to Disney with my parents. I remember being in line for Eeyore with my mom, who was super excited to get his autograph. He signed her hat, and she kept that hat her entire life. I was 8. Shortly after, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and passed before my 10th birthday. Then it was just me and Ma. She remarried a terrible man, and the next 15 years were pretty much hell, and I am unable to recall the vast majority of any memory from age 10 to around 19 or 20. My mom was diagnosed with early onset dementia, went blind, then died this past September. I was 26 and horribly depressed. My wife planned a trip to Disney for our 5-year anniversary, which was just a couple of months later, to try to rekindle some joy in our lives. Over time, Eeyore has kind of fallen out of style and is only available to visit in Disney in a hard-to-get-into, expensive restaurant, and only on certain days he is there. Our vacation happened to be at the same time as my late mom's birthday. Our anniversary was the day before her birthday. My wife got us into the restaurant on my mom's birthday and got Eeyore to come pay me a visit and give me a hug. I cried like a child in the restaurant in front of everyone that day and felt more relieved, more closure, more happiness and joy and sadness at the same time than I thought ever possible. I'm sure the other guests and the cast member in the costume were wondering why the adult male hugging Eeyore was bawling and hysterical. But in that moment, I have never felt more loved, more important, and more cared for since that first Disney trip with my family all those years ago. I broke out of my depression, got a new job, and turned my life around thanks to that visit. I love my wife dearly. Story 31. Touch me and wants physical contact with me, not even in the sexual way. When I get home every day, we hug for about 10 seconds. I love just holding her. She will come up and give me a back rub randomly, often when I am on my computer gaming. She will scratch my scalp, back, and anywhere else I want scratched. Puts her to sleep as I ask for one when we are in bed, and within a few minutes, she is out. We will cuddle on our couch or bed, and we both just rub on each other, sexual and non-sexual. I do not know if I could be with a woman who did not absolutely love to touch me.